On May 18th in 2018, a total of 68 gunshots rang out. 16 of those gunshots came from a Jonathan Oddi. The remaining gunshots came from the City of Doral Police Department. Before the shootout occurred, you could see on the CCTV a man walking in dressed in all black with an American flag and a Glock 17. At some point during the shootout, Jonathan Oddi was shot, and you could see him limping up the stairs, and afterwards, the rest is on the tapes. At some point in the video, we will be getting into the tape and we'll be getting into the footage, who Jonathan Oddi is, and what does any of this have to do with P. Diddy, and potentially a few more names that I won't name just yet, but we'll get to them. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to apologize. I've been out for a minute, life's been happening, but we got 2 more episodes, counting this one, in this particular series of corruption and scandals and fraud going on within the nation with a dash of conspiracy, and then we'll be on to the next season. Jonathan was born in Newcastle in South Africa, and he actually comes from an Argentinian background. If I recall, I believe he mentioned that his parents fled from Argentina to South Africa at some point during his upbringing. At some point, he moved to the United States, settling down in Doral, Florida. Throughout Jonathan Oddi's life, he's done many different things. He studied for a business administration degree in Argentina. He ended up settling down in Doral, Florida, and from there, he was actually a fitness instructor. And when he wasn't a fitness instructor, he was working on his family business that was part of the gemstone business after his father had passed away. And through the midst of all of these businesses, at some point, he became a sex worker, essentially a porn star, for a company called the Dancing Bear. The Dancing Bear, just to kind of break it down very simply, it's like a mix between strippers but also porn. So yeah, they strip but they also smash. It's a very interesting cross section. So again, at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, peculiar guy, Jonathan Oddi, was in Argentina, was in South Africa, now he's in Florida. Okay, cool. What does this guy have to do with anything? Why is he relevant? He was a sex worker or something, I guess. Cool, all cool, whatever. So going back to the shooting, right? Why did this guy, seemingly cool, normal life for the most part, all of a sudden decides to go into this facility, this golf club, and start shooting at the chandeliers? What brought all of this on? According to Jonathan Oddi, he did all of this to send a message. So that was for you and me, I guess. He decided that he wanted to send a message and he wanted to get people's attention to the corruption that is happening under our own noses that we don't even realize. Basically saying that the government and some of the most powerful and elite people within the United States are all in together, and they are all in plans to corrupt this nation. And he wanted to get this message to Donald Trump. Very interesting, bold gesture. Could have got yourself killed, but apparently he's still here. One of the freakiest things I think he mentioned, and by the way, I want you to keep in mind, this is all in 2018, okay? Because some of this stuff you can hear now and, it makes sense, right? Or to a degree, it's not nearly as much of a heavy blow as possibly it could have been almost a decade ago, right? But one thing that was also freaky, he mentioned something along the lines of Donald Trump thought he was doing Hillary Clinton a favor by not locking her up, and he thought that he would be good, but that Donald Trump needs to watch his back because there was going to be an assassination attempt on his life. And then you fast forward to 2025 and it's like, well, damn, okay. So that all happened, it all came true. But again, at this point in 2018, I want you to keep putting yourself in that, in that mind frame, right? He's sitting here in this interrogation room after he's had this shootout with the police, and he just sounds crazy. Like, I mean, come on, like, nobody believes anything that he's saying, but, we're going to keep diving into what he says.
No, so I jumped the fence and I took the American flag and I put it in the front desk and I blew up the chandelier. basically, what I did that for is to transmit a statement to the American people and to Donald Trump that we're not accepting any more corruption and abuse from their system of friends. Okay? Donald's still blind because he thinks that he let Hillary off the hook and she's okay. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying, okay. Keep going.
It ain't like that. The CIA and then they want to do the same thing that he did to JFK. Okay?
Alright.
Why? Because they want the United States to fall.
He kept mentioning that there were powers within our own government that want the United States to crumble. They want it to fall, which, side note, there is actually a theory, it's in the conspiracy theory iceberg, just a little slight derail. It's called accelerationism. And accelerationism, it's a conspiracy theory that basically says that the best parts of humanity and innovation comes, but it only comes after we have some type of setback. So, in other words, if we want to get to this new golden age, if we want to get to this new, breakthrough, this new renaissance of technology, growth, and overall just a better period of humanity, we need to fall first. And accelerationism basically states that why don't we just speed up the process and get to the good point? So, instead of just trying to chug along right now, why don't we fall so we can get up more powerful than we did before? That's accelerationism. And essentially, that's kind of what Oddi was getting at. He was getting at the powers that be in our own governments, possibly CIA or any other three-letter organizations, are now slowly trying to push us into accelerationism so we can crumble to build back better. Oh. And again, when you hear him do all of these ramblings in this tape, it just sounds like a fever dream. He goes on to mention that, he's talking about the Illuminati and secret societies and satanic rituals and cannibalism and all of these other isms and alities that I won't say because I'm going to try to promo this video. So, but whatever you can kind of think of or whatever you've already heard in all of the Illuminati, blah, 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 conspiracy theory kind of ritual stuff is essentially what he's saying is true and is real and is legitimate. He also went on to say that, Trump is like cousins or something with a lot of these bloodlines. A lot of stuff.
I know you're going to believe me. You have what's called the Illuminati.
Illuminati.
Okay. Yeah, Illuminati. Okay. They've made it in dance. Basically what it means, illuminated.
I got you.
Okay. They do satanic ritual abuse, which is basically CIA mind programming techniques to their own family, kids, etc. They're on the crew, and they bond that way. Okay, so they do sexual pedophilia, they do animal abuse, killing of animals, blood sacrifices, and everything in the Bohemian Grove. Okay,
right.
The Bohemian Grove, the Bushes go there. George C. and George, both of them are in the same agenda.
So then, if you're thinking what I was probably thinking at this point, at this point, these are crazy ramblings, right? But there's a little part in me that always wonders, okay, entertain me. How do you know all of this? How do you have all of this information? Where did it come from? And that's what the police officers asked him in the interrogation. How do you know all this? And that is when the floodgates opened. And that's, unfortunately, at the time where you can even hear it in their voices, they are like, this dude's crazy.
How do I know this?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How do you know this?
Do you know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever you call himself these days. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's part of what's called the Boule. The Boule is a branch of the Illuminati.
Okay.
It's the black people. Okay. I'm from Africa, so I'm not a racist. Okay, you're my brother, so I like black people.
So he goes on to ask the police officers, do you know who Sean Combs is? P. Diddy. And they're like, yeah, we know Diddy, yeah. And then he goes on and he says, well, Diddy is part of something called the Boule. If you've never heard of the term Boule, it's essentially the Illuminati, but specifically for black people. I've always thought about trying to do research on it. I just never fully got around to it. I may do it in a future season. Comment below if you want to hear me break down not just the boule, but secret societies in general, because I'm really thinking about doing that as a topic. But according to him, Diddy is part of the boule. And then, of course, they were like, okay, well, how do you know Diddy? And then he goes on to say, well, I know Diddy because I also know Cassie. And they like to have me do things mainly with Cassie, but sometimes Diddy may be very nearby. I'll say that.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate and tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard a lot of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave. Okay, for them that's what I was. That's all. All right. I caught herpes, and I came back and I sued him for the herpes and won.
Now, he mentioned specifically that the reason why Diddy is so rich, famous, and powerful is because he signed very specific, special, discreet contracts. And what I liked about this is he was able to name the people that Diddy signed these contracts with. This is the kind of information we all want, not just that they, them stuff, like who is they, who is them. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to do this, blah, 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 right? No, he named specific people. He named Ben Masalis and he named Garagos.
I had settlement with Sean, okay? And he belongs to that agenda. That's why he's so famous. They land all the contracts. It's his attorneys, which are Mark Garagos and Ben Masalis. Ben Masalis worked for Bad Boy Entertainment for 4 years and worked for Hillary Rodman for 5.
Ben Masalis and Mark Garagos happen to be lawyers in the entertainment industry specifically. And if you know anything about entertainment and corporate lawyers, that's a different breed of lawyers. Matter of fact, right now, as we are speaking, as the whole Sean Combs, Cassie, whatever, Diddy Rico trial is going on, I believe Mark Garagos is actually one of the lawyers, a part of Diddy's team. Now, to dive a little bit more deeper into details, maybe too much details, TMI we're about to get into, I'll try to figure out ways to kind of dance around what I want to say. Again, I want to promote this video. So, just to kind of go deeper, because they were like, how do you know all this information? You said you know Diddy, and of course, I guess that's your source, so how do you know it? And I thought it was very interesting because what he said, again, this is, 7-8 years ago, right? He says that Diddy would pay him to, have activities with Cassie while Diddy watched said activities happen, right? So he said while he's having these activities with Cassie, he would overhear Diddy, because Diddy wouldn't just be watching him. Diddy would also be on the phone. Diddy would be in business meetings. So he would see Diddy on the phone. Sometimes it was on speakerphone. Sometimes it would be on a Bluetooth speaker coming through the TV or some kind of speakers within the hotel room. And while this is happening, he would hear these business meetings, or he would hear Diddy on these conference calls and in these meetings with people in groups or secret societies. And again, this is 7 years ago when nobody was even thinking about this kind of information, really. So I just keep wanting to put that 7 years ago, because this guy is essentially the spear. He's the tip of the spear, a part of this whole, this whole topic. But fairly few people know about him because, one, he's in jail right now for the shooting, and two, nobody really paid attention. They just thought the guy was crazy. And I mean, it sounds crazy. Sorry, I keep saying that over and over again, but I just want y'all to understand the gravity of the situation. He mentioned that whenever he was doing things with Cassie, he ended up noticing that he got something, wink, wink, that he couldn't get rid of. Okay? Wink, wink. Starts with an H, ends with an herpes. So he ended up contracting that. And of course, he was offended. He was mad because they didn't disclose that they even had that. And just so y'all don't, get it misconstrued, that's actually illegal. If you know you have something like that and you don't disclose it with the other person, you could, I think, potentially go to jail for that. So if you know you got something, you should probably let people know. Don't hide it. That's illegal. So he ended up contracting something. So he tried to take them to court. And they ended up settling out of court. They settled, I think he said, for a few millions of dollars. And whenever that happened, that set off a chain reaction of more events in his life that he didn't want to happen. So they were kind of salty that he did that, right? And not only this, but apparently he somehow had a videotaping of one of the sessions. And the lawyers, one of the lawyers I mentioned earlier, I can't remember off the top of my head. Give me a second, I'm gonna check my notes. I believe it was Ben, maybe it was Garagos. They asked Jonathan for the tapes, right? So they asked him for the tapes, and Jonathan ended up giving them the tape. Somehow, some mix-up happened, and they accidentally gave Jonathan the tape back. So now he has the tape, and he has millions of dollars. So he has literally all of the proof and evidence to validate it, and that's what he tells the cops in the interrogation. He was like, I think I still have a copy of the tape. And if you guys need a copy of the tape, I can give you a copy of this tape. That's no biggie. But yes, now Jonathan now has these millions of dollars. He has the tape, and unfortunately he has a gift that keeps on giving that he can't throw away. So Jonathan then decides to jump over because he asked them, you know, I bet you're wondering, how does any of this connect back to Orange President with the hair? And he goes on to say that because of these entertainment lawyers, it creates a whole underlying web of connections that people on the average every day don't think about. So he mentions that that same lawyer, let me check my notes, make sure I'm getting the right one. Yeah, that same lawyer, Mark Garagos, he is connected to orange-skinned hair president, also with Michael Jackson. So that makes 3 connections right there. Michael Jackson, president, and Diddy. They all have like the same entertainment lawyer. They've all worked through said same entertainment lawyer. He ended up going on saying that Michael Jackson indeed was assassinated, which is a conspiracy theory that some people believe because it was just such a weird way to see him go down in such an overdose, right? If I recall, I'm very blurry on this subject at this point, but I believe Michael Jackson's doctor somehow gave him the wrong dosage of medication. So Michael Jackson overdosed, thinking that he was taking the appropriate amount because he just read the bottle and was like, okay, take this. And it ended up being an overdose amount. So he said the reason why that they wanted to do that is because, one, the entertainment industry is very dirty, which is a story we've heard over and over and over again. But according to them, they wanted to own Michael Jackson's, I think, publishings. I always get the terms mixed up. Publishings, distribution, catalog, whatever. They wanted to own Michael Jackson's stuff. That's all you need to know, right? And he was giving an estimate saying that Michael Jackson's like catalog or whatever alone, just alone, with the streams, with albums, with merch, all this, whatever, right? Just alone, if Michael Jackson didn't do anything else, he would be making roughly $860 million a year by just having that existing. So the music industry looks at that and they thought, I mean, that's almost a cool $1 billion just because like we don't even have to do anything else. And because of that takes out all of the other expenditures, you know what I mean? Like that takes out all the other spending. We don't have to worry about him on tour and, you know, paying this out and paying that out, and we don't have to worry about paying him at all anymore. He just keeps paying us forever, almost $1 billion. And if it spikes, because it always spikes when somebody dies, then it's going to be more than $1 billion. So why not? So he went down this tangent, and this is going to happen during this video. I should have warned you. We're going to go down tangents because I'm following his interrogation tape the most. So he went down rabbit holes. So that's what we're doing.
Now, how does this lead to war start from?
Okay.
The Mercedes family. Ben Mercedes, that works with Mark Garagos. Mark Garagos used to be Michael Jackson's attorney.
Yeah, out in Los Angeles.
Yeah. He had he drugged Michael and they OD'd him, okay? He didn't overdose. They OD'd him because they keep the royalties of the music. Michael alone made $860 million alone last year, okay, in 2017. who keeps that royalty? The music companies. Who represents the media and entertainment in the United States? Most of them, Mercedes does. Kenny Mercedes, which is Gruber Mercedes Shire out of New York. Okay.
Now, he did mention that although Hair President Orange Skin, he mentioned that although he's worked with the Mercedes and the Garagos, lawyers in the past, they don't really like each other now. And he mentioned something along the lines that Orange Skin President basically turned his back on them, and he turned his back on this whole agenda that the elite cabal is doing. Listen, do with this information as you wish, whatever. I'm just regurgitating, okay? But he turned his back on them, right? And the Mercedes family and the Garagos family didn't like that because they're still a part of this agenda or whatever. So they started running these kind of campaigns because it's like multiple of the brothers in the Mercedes family, right? One of them is an entertainment lawyer, one of them owns a media company, and the third one is, I believe, some kind of marketing president or supervisor, director, or something like that. So all in all together, they have all of the chops to put together something to run a campaign effectively on someone, and they did it on that specific president. And, if you can look back, you can actually see these campaigns. You can actually go find trails of those campaigns. Now, this one... This is where it gets a little I'm gonna just say it because it's in the video, but this is probably one of the most useless pieces of information, in my words. He goes on to say, I gotta look at this and make sure I get it right. He goes on to say that Hillary is a distant cousin of Orange Skin Hair President, and Obama also plans to take him out. So Hillary and Obama are going to tag team together to take him out. He also mentioned that Obama had a hand in 9/11 and that he was a collaborator with the CIA at the time. And then he goes on to say that Obama is having an identity crisis because he's played so many separate roles and people working for the CIA, and one of them was Bin Laden. That's what he said, okay? That's what he said. I didn't say it. I'm just repeating what he said. Anyways, now let's get back on track to Diddy and Cassie, right? So according to Jonathan Oddi, he mentioned that whenever he got the settlement, and like I mentioned earlier, this is where his problems actually started to begin. So he said that whenever he got the settlement money, they kind of put him in a box. So if you've ever heard of the term gang stalking is essentially if a person thinks that like they are getting stalked by a gang of people. So let's just say you're outside, you're walking your dog, right? And it really triggers through levels of paranoia and sometimes schizophrenia. Sometimes it's actually legit, but most of the time people just think that like everybody around them is like out to get them and spying on them. That's gang stalking. So you're out walking your dog, you look over and you see somebody that kind of just makes eye contact with you, and you're like, oh my God, they're following me. And then you look over and you feel like you see somebody else kind of following you, and it's like, hey, this dude, I've seen this dude like 2 blocks over. Is he following me? That's essentially gang stalking. And this is what Jonathan Oddi said he started experiencing. Now, weirdly enough, in his case, even through all the kooky stuff I've said so far, he could actually be onto something this time. So according to him, he said that he was getting gang stalked after he got this settlement money. And he said, of course, the reason why he believes that is because he believes that they don't think he's going to shut up. They think he's going to squeal. They think he's going to drop some kind of information. And at this point, they probably realized, oh, snap, we gave him the tape back. And he said that he believes that this was all initiated by Mark Garagos, which again, I mentioned earlier, that was the guy who accidentally gave him the tape back. That was that lawyer. He went on to say that not only was he getting gang stalked, but he believed that Mark Garagos was specifically sending the FBI to him, and they were trying to paint a picture that none of this actually happened and that he was an extortionist, which I don't think that flies, because it's like, bro, if that was the case, why did you already give him millions of dollars? You already gave him the money, so you kind of, I'm not gonna say you admitted fault, but like, you know what I mean? It just don't look good.
My settlement put me in a box. Basically, I couldn't talk. because otherwise I'll be sued. So I let it be, but they've been following me, and they've had, Mark Garrick has had the FBI on me, has had other agencies looking at me and spying on me, okay, because they want to set me up as an extortionist, like if I was extorting Sean for money. It's wrong.
So moving on, we're now about to crank it up a notch. Jonathan Oddi then goes on in the interrogation to say that P. Diddy, Rick Ross, and DJ Khaled are all gay. He says they're all gay. And then he specifically says that DJ Khaled supports Hamas. I don't know why he threw that bit in there, but he threw that bit in there.
Basically what happened is Diddy and Ross, which they good buddies, okay, they're gay.
Who?
Both. Diddy and Ross. And Khaled. They're all gay, okay?
DJ Khaled, Rick Ross, and P. Diddy?
Yeah.
They all gay?
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Khaled is a Hamas supporter. Okay?
Who supporter?
Hamas.
Hamas. Yeah. Gotcha.
Sorry, I said it wrong.
No worries.
Hamas supporter, okay?
Right.
Basically, he's Arab, Palestinian, okay? The Ciroc agenda, okay, is basically binge drinking poured out on a youth. They promote binge drinking and drugs.
Gotcha.
He mentioned that Ciroc promotes binge drinking. Tupac is still alive in Cuba. Don't know why the hell he threw that in there. He also mentioned that hip hop has been hijacked by the CIA, which is also a theory that has been floating around for quite some time. This theory has been promoted for quite some time, and just to kind of give you a gist of it, it's saying essentially that hip hop has been hijacked to essentially commodify and also put people into pipelines. So for example, if you notice now, and it just ever so grows, there's more talks in hip hop music about drug usage, about selling drugs, about alcohol, just all of these kind of negative, abusive things, right? He mentioned that that was all part of the plan, and it is something that has been constructed by the CIA. Even more specifically, it is a pipeline, right? So you get people that get in and they enjoy hip hop, and some of these people go down the more destructive, abusive sides, right? Well, on the end of that pipeline is literally jail. It is a pipeline to funnel certain people into the jail system, and that way they can do free labor. This is again what Jonathan Oddi was saying in his whole interrogation.
The hip hop agenda is an agenda to move drugs all over the United States. You need to inform the DEA. They move all the dope. Okay, all the dope on private jets, which don't get screened by
customs,
by the inside the United States. Okay, they move what's called high grade powder MDMA. They move cocaine and they move liquid cocaine in the bottles too. Okay, so they put the liquid cocaine in the bottles and they move it. I've seen the liquid cocaine. I've drank it myself. Having sex with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, it's not good. He drinks it all the time. Alright, he calls it G-Juice, but it's liquid cocaine.
Alright.
He even doubled down on the whole drug and Ciroc thing. He mentioned that Diddy would take or essentially smuggle bottles of Ciroc onto his private jets, because when it comes to private jets, they do different things. They aren't really checked, and you aren't really checked the way you would through, normal airplanes. I guess they assume if some BS is going to happen on a private jet, hey, that's your ass. But anyways, he said that Diddy would smuggle bottles of Ciroc on the plane, but these bottles were not filled up with actual alcohol. They were filled up with that liquid cocaine substance that has been mentioned a few times in the media. He mentioned that not only do they put liquid cocaine into the bottles, but they also smuggle on MDMA and just, I guess, regular cocaine as well, whatever regular cocaine is. I don't know, I'm a good noodle. But yeah, he mentioned that they smuggle all of this kind of stuff on the planes, and of course they transport it, to wherever they want to go and party. He mentioned that he's tried some of this liquid cocaine himself at some of the freak offs. He said he's drinking or drank it. And he said he doesn't like it. He said it sucks, which I imagine so. But he said Diddy drinks it like all the time. He said Diddy just drinks liquid cocaine like it's nothing, which is freaky. He also mentioned that Diddy specifically gives it a nickname and he calls it GG. Don't know what that means, don't know what that stands for, but Diddy drinks GG. This next part, I really need your help on. So if you can comment below, like I'm being dead serious right now, I need your help because I've heard this a few times. And if you haven't heard it, now you've heard it. And now you're probably going to start hearing it a few times yourself. He said, if you want to know what happens next, because he said everything that we know right now is a game. He said that there's some kind of Illuminati card game. And if you want to know what happens next, you have to play that card game. I don't know what the hell the Illuminati card game is. I tried looking it up on Amazon. I didn't get any hits. I don't know. So if you can find out whatever that card game is, please comment it below. I'll look it up. And if it's legit, I will pin that comment because I want to know what the game is. Because apparently we can figure out what's next in the whole grand scheme or whatever. So let me know if you know what this Illuminati card game is.
How do I know there's a conspiracy against Trump? Because it's in the Illuminati card deck. He should look at it for himself.
But let me bring you back to Thursday night, Friday morning.
Sure.
I mean, how did all of this? I think I better understand what you're saying. But what I want to know is how did that prompt you? How did that make you do what you did that night?
Well, we're getting to a point that his assassination is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it's an agenda they're perpetrating on the media and the news.
So at this point, you could kind of tell that the officers were a little fed up. That was a little bit too much crazy cockamamie goof juice news for them. So they say, hey, bro, back down to earth. So just tell us, what were you doing the day before? What was happening, before you decided to go spray up this place for no reason? And Jonathan Oddi essentially says, I wasn't having anything bad happen. There was no negative thoughts. Basically, he said he was cool as a cucumber. He pretty much knew what he was going to do, and he knew why he was doing it. So he was essentially telling them this was not some type of act of psychosis. I had this all planned. So according to him, he kind of knew in his head that it was going to go down the way it went down. He said that he simply just wanted to get the message out, and this was the best way that he could go about causing some type of commotion to get people to pay attention, which unfortunately, I still don't think a lot of people paid attention. But now I'm telling you so you can pay attention. So another reason why he had a motive to do the shooting is he essentially said he was fed up. So far his motives were that the American people are going through a level of corruption. Our country is getting sabotaged and on the brink of falling, and it is being done purposely by our own government. But another reason why is essentially Jonathan Oddi was just flat out pissed off. So according to him, and this is where it gets off the rails crazy. According to Jonathan Oddi, he said Rick Ross, yes, Ricky Ross, the boss, showed up to his house while him and one of his friends were there, because he also said he has a friend that could corroborate everything that happened. He said Rick Ross showed up to his house with a gun, shot his friend, and aimed the gun at him, and was essentially just talking all this trash. Again, this goes back to the whole trying to paint him as an extortionist, saying that he's gonna rat everybody out and snitch on everybody, right? Hey, do with this information as you wish. But according to Jonathan Oddi, Rick Ross showed up to his house, shot one of his best friends that he used to go to the gym with, and then left.
So you didn't tell, before I asked that question, so you have an ex-wife, you got a girlfriend, you got anybody that you talk to? I'm trying to understand if you got somebody that you interact with on a daily basis.
Yes, I have a good friend, a breakfast buddy. His name is Luis David Gonzalez. And we go to the gym every day. He has nothing to do with what happened Thursday. Though he's a witness, he's gotten shot at by them, and he's a witness that Ross came and threatened me at my house. Post-settlement. After we settled, Diddy sent Ross, and I asked him to go see if that was Ross, and he confirmed his identity.
So Gonzalez, he can back up what you're saying about P. Diddy and Ross and all that? Okay, all right. And you said Gonzalez didn't know anything about what you did? You didn't talk to him before?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay.
He knows nothing. He was actually worried about me. He's like, hey, what's up? And I told him, look, man, what's happening is he's trying to cool things down, but then the feds have been harassing him. The feds have been. They have a big file of me like this. The feds, since because P. Diddy and Mark Garagos have been trying to set me up and lock me up as an extortionist, asking for money. It was not so. My settlement was breach, and my settlement terms is one was called peaceful enjoyment. That means that if I went to your house or I did something, you'd have to pay me the full amount back and forth.
I get all that.
So I've been going through that since like 2012 still.
All right, and Gonzalez knows about that? You talked to him about that kind of stuff?
I talked to him alone because he's the only one that knows since the beginning.
So at this point, the police officers decide to kind of switch up the speed, right? And they say, tell me, what you do for work. Tell me, about, your day to day. And just tell me, like, they're trying to paint a picture of, what kind of guy this is, right? So what do you do for work? What were you doing before you did the shooting and all this other stuff, right? So it tells him that, he took over basically his father's family business with gemstones. I believe he said his father passed away, so now he kind of takes over the family business. He works from home. And because he works from home, he kind of has a little home office setup, right? So, he has like, files, file cabinets, laptop, desktop, everything you'd kind of need to have, that going on at home. So they asked him, about everything. And he basically said he kind of threw most of his stuff away. He threw all of his documents away. He threw his electronics away. I think he said even his TV. He just threw all of his electronics away the day before it happened because he mentioned that he knows he's probably getting spied on through microphones and through cameras throughout his, throughout his house. And he said he may still have a copy of the Cassie tape, but he wasn't 100% sure. But he said he just threw everything out because he knew he was getting spied on and he didn't want to give them any kind of way to figure out what his next moves would be. Now, if you go back and you watch the mass surveillance iceberg video that I did, which if you hadn't, this is a plug, go back and watch it. You know that it's incredibly easy to bug somebody, especially if you're the FBI. I even mentioned they have certain tools that they can use to just like literally just tap right into something. So simple. It's no longer like the movies where they got to go outside and fidget with wires. They can do it with software now. So his claims were right. And again, so far, most of the stuff he said, even if it's not verifiable, it is somewhat plausible and realistic. So then the police officers go on and they try to ask him basically one more time, what kind of state of mind was he in when he did this, the day before. And he basically just tells them the same thing. He was cool as a cucumber. He knew what he was going to do. He had it kind of all meticulously planned out and, he had his reasons of doing it. He then goes on to say a few other things about the president, basically that we're giving too much money to Saudi Arabia. Don't know where the hell that came from, but he said it. And then he went on to say this, and I want to read this because this part was chilling because I don't fully know what it means. But he says this. He says, and I guess for this time I'm just going to say his name. He says, he knows who they are. He knows who they are. And maybe the CIA does, but the Secret Service doesn't. I don't know what in the hell that line meant. Very cryptic. But apparently, according to this, Donald Trump knows who they are. The CIA does, but the Secret Service doesn't. Whatever that means, leave a comment if you know what that means. Now, this is interesting as well because I don't think I've ever heard this angle. He goes on to mention specifically why Trump was angry at the Stormy Daniels situation. And he essentially said that Trump was taking something called Propecia, which is some type of drug that is supposed to help with hair loss or male pattern baldness. But it has side effects. And these side effects are essentially erectile dysfunction, low libido, and other things kind of in that realm. So according to what he was saying was there's a chance that, can't believe I'm talking about this. There's a chance that he was experiencing these side effects with Stormy Daniels, and that news coupled with the Stormy Daniel news was going to be incredibly explosive. Because I mean, it's hard to be a president and people know you have ED. It sounds crazy to some people. It sounds juvenile to even, put your mind there. But like, I also want you to remember that the CIA had a plot to shave or make Fidel Castro's beard fall out so it would demoralize Cubans. So like, if you think that there's not some kind of psychological, aspect to how a president is viewed and how that affects on the people, it is. And you can be demoralized in other ways. Like, you may not care necessarily, like it may not make you feel bad, but it makes you, basically have less respect for your president or even your country, because you're like, wow, we look like a clown circus. That is still demoralization. You don't have to necessarily feel bad. You could feel, disgusted even. That's demoralization. Overall, it's tearing you away from how you truly feel patriotic about your nation. That is demoralization.
Donald has an issue. His doctor prescribing Propecia. You know what Propecia is?
It's the skin or the hair.
Hair growth thing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay? So basically what happens when you take Propecia, your dick goes limp. But limp because you're taking Propecia. He has air issues. His doctor, birthday, slipped the Propecia out, okay? So for him, Stormy's story is bad news because it's embarrassing. That's why he's going crazy with that. It's not that he's lying to the American people. He's embarrassed about Stormy's situation, okay? He paid her and she's coming back with some bullshit stories, okay?
So that's essentially it when it comes to most of the tape. I've tried to splice some clips in, so hopefully those clips are somewhere in this editing. But there's a few other things that I wanted to talk to you about that I think are equally as important, because people keep asking, why is Diddy even in trial? Why is he there? Right? So I just want to go through and I'm going to read off some of the reasons why Diddy's in trial. He's in trial for a RICO case, right? So according to that, I'm going to list on screen right now what the definition of racketeering is. So go ahead, pause right now if you want to take a look at that definition. And other than that, we're about to get into what he is being brought up on charges for. So Diddy is being brought up on 2 charges of sex trafficking, 2 charges of transportation to engage in prostitution, arson, and this includes also cases of kidnapping, drugging, coercing people into sexual activities, sometimes using firearms or threats of violence. And then on top of that, on a whole other separate note, Diddy is facing more than 100 assault allegations. And that assault allegations, that's not even part of the whole RICO thing. That's separate in a whole other bag of BS. So the man got his plate full. I'll say that. He got a full plate on his hand. So if you've ever wondered what is he getting charged for, everything else around it, in my opinion, is kind of just sensationalism to like make you dial into it. And I think they're doing it just to make him look worse. They're making it to where he just looks like a freak of nature in court. Like all of the Cassie stuff, it's bad. And some of it's illegal and some of it's just frowned upon. Some of it's just kind of disgusting. But I think most of that is literally to paint a picture. What he's actually in court for are the things that I've named before. And yes, all of that is illegal. If I put prostitutes on a plane and then I fly across the country with these prostitutes, and somewhere in the middle of this, either this state, that state, or somewhere in between, we're doing the prostitution acts, if I recall, I think that automatically upgrades it to federal because you're crossing state lines. So that's something that people got to understand. The arson thing, that's the whole Kid Cudi situation where somebody blew up a car. or he blew up a car or got somebody to blow up a car. Because people keep saying like he didn't do anything illegal. Like, bro, if I blow up your car, that's definitely illegal. What the hell are you talking about? That alone is very illegal. You can't blow up people's cars. When's the last time you blew up somebody's car and like just went on about your business? I mean, if nobody know, maybe, but like, come on. So another thing that I want to touch on is some of the connections mentioned earlier, right? You know, we mentioned Mark Garagos, we mentioned Ben Masalis. I think there's also a Kenny Masalis. I think, if I recall, I think Kenny is the father and Ben is the son. I may have flipped that. I don't know. And I think there's also like a Grubman, something like that. But these are all these entertainment lawyers and whatnot, right? So we're just going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these connections. So the Midas Touch is a media company, and it was founded by some of the Masalis family, Ben and Brett specifically. I haven't mentioned Brett Masalis until now. Brett Masalis is an Emmy award-winning video editor who's known for working on a show called The Ellen DeGeneres Show. And the third one is Jordan Masalis, who is that kind of marketing director or whatever person I told you about in New York. Also, there is another law firm, Grubman, Shire, Masalis, and Sachs. That is another law firm, and I just wanted to throw them in there. Again, just more or less for a connections kind of piece. So right here on the screen, really quickly, I'm going to put up all of the different lawyers and whatnot that you can go see under these people. So I just thought that was just some important information you could look up in your spare time if this kind of stuff really interests you, because this is essentially a rabbit hole that kind of just forks into a bunch of other rabbit holes, and you could just pick a hole and jump down. And also, I thought this was incredibly interesting. So at the time of me recording this, a few days ago, there was that whole beef on Twitter between Trump and Elon Musk, and they were going back and forth. And, you know, Elon said some crazy stuff about, you know, Trump and knowing a former alive person who did not hang himself, right? He kind of said some crazy stuff about their connections. And if you haven't seen that, the very, very, very first video on this channel dives into that connection a little bit more in detail. So it's almost getting corroborated, right? But I just wanted to put this screenshot on right now so you can actually see that this is something that keeps getting brought up, but it also keeps getting covered up almost immediately. Like, nobody's really pursuing these allegations seriously. But I at least wanted to let you know that there is a connection between Diddy and between these lawyers and between Trump, and it also deals with that whole scenario. So through and through, there have been a ton of things going on in this whole ordeal. They're looking at basically Bad Boy Entertainment almost as like a mafia family, organized crime, because that's what he kind of did. He's using his enterprise money to do a lot of these nefarious dealings, and that's where the whole RICO kind of comes in. That's where it kind of makes all of this a little bit more than just your average, you know, person being sketchy. But I wanted to leave y'all with just a few highlights that I can recall, not even just from the trial, but just Diddy probably over the past like 15 to 20 years. So we're just going to jump into all of that right now really quickly, and then the video is essentially done. So Diddy allegedly blew up Kid Cudi's car, all because Kid Cudi was talking to Cassie. And it was like this whole weird thing because Cassie was kind of playing them at the same exact time, which, listen, I'm not going to sit here and make Cassie the complete victim in this whole ordeal because she was still doing some sketchy stuff herself. But here's the thing, though. Even if your girl is doing sketchy stuff, bro, that does not give you the right to blow up a dude's car. Let's not overlook this piece. That is still illegal. I can't stop saying this. That is still illegal, y'all. Y'all cannot keep saying, what did he do wrong? What did he do? He blew up a dude's car.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
So on top of that, Diddy also had a drug mule. Now, Diddy had multiple drug mules, but this drug mule specifically was in charge of showing up with Plan B and abortion medication, which is crazy. Imagine being so freaky that you have a Plan B plug. Just imagine some dude showing up at your event with a duffel bag full of Plan B and abortion medications. Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I kink shame. That's too freaky. You need to go get help. Diddy also used to do freak offs with a male sex worker named the Punisher. I've got nothing for that. Moving on. To corroborate Jonathan Oddi's story, they actually found MDMA in eye drop bottles. So mentioned earlier, Jonathan Oddi said they would smuggle MDMA, liquid cocaine, and regular cocaine on the private jets. Well, they actually found the MDMA. And again, I just can't help but point out, Jonathan said all of this stuff 7 years ago, bro. 7 years ago. And we're just now repeating the same stuff he's already said. There was a man named Keefy D. Keefy D is now in prison. Keefy D came out and said that he was essentially supposed to be paid $1 million for the assassination of Tupac Shakur. Now, according to Keefy D, he was not the gunman. I believe he was the getaway driver, or he just happened to be an accomplice in the car. He said the gunman who actually murdered Tupac is already dead. That guy's already dead and gone. He said he came out and he wanted to expose this information because they were supposed to get paid a certain amount of money. And of course, Diddy screwed them over on that and they did not get paid what they were supposed to get paid. I don't know if y'all remember this, but this also happened years ago as well. Do you remember there was a news article at one point and it basically said that like Diddy's assistant, I think she was like trying to sue him or something like that because Diddy told her to like feed him some grapes or something while he was having sex. So he basically called her in the room while he was doing it. It was like, hey, and he was like, feed me, while he was like in the middle of being a freak. So she just like was like, nah, bro, you're a weirdo. And then she left. And of course, you know, sexual harassment. So here's another big one that kind of hit the airwaves. This one's really allegations, but it's allegations backed with kind of video footage. So you have to know a little bit of the lore, right? So one thing that they would say is like these freak offs would be so intense and so brutal and they would last for like days at a time, right? Like 2 to 3 days at a time. And because of how intense and because of how brutal the conditions were, because Diddy would also do things like ask for the temperature to be really, really high. So I'm talking really, really high. I'm talking like no AC, dozens of people walking around butt naked, freaking off, sweaty everywhere, so hot that they would also put heaters. They would put more heat in the room. So they put heaters in the room, right? But anyways, all that to say this. Because of how intense it was, a lot of these people from all of these drugs and all of this stuff happening, they would need to get IVs put in their arms afterwards. And you can go find it right now on the internet. If I don't put it into this video, you can go find a small clip of Diddy with his mother, and they both have IVs in their arms talking about how good of a weekend they had, and then they like kissed on the lips or something. It was freaking weird. It was weird.
Yeah, my mom's gorgeous. Hold on, let me introduce you to my mom. Called Mom Dukes.
Hi.
She's getting a drip with me. She's hydrating. What's up, Mom?
Everything's good, baby. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
My baby.
And I wanted to save this bit of information for the end because this is one of the most outrageous stories. I'm not going to fully tell it because this is probably the most graphic thing I could say in this entire video. So I'm just going to say, look it up. There was an allegation that someone made out of those hundreds of sexual assault allegations. This is one of the crazier ones. There was an allegation that someone made, and all I'm going to say is to look it up. Look up details about a director at Macy's. So essentially the story is, if you remember back in the day, Diddy had a clothing line, Sean John, right? So Diddy had Sean John, and according to him, a big rival of Sean John at the time was Echo, if you ever remember Echo. Well, apparently Diddy ran into, oh yeah, that's actually right, my bad. Diddy ran into the director of Echo, not Macy's, but he ran into the director of Echo inside Macy's, right? So he essentially cornered him into a stock room in a Macy's, and I'm not gonna say what happened next because it's insane what happened next. And if I actually tell you, I know for a fact this video would get demonetized if it could get monetized. In other words, it's gonna go to a black hole. But I'm just gonna say Google that, okay? Google that if you can. Google Macy's Echo Director Diddy stockroom. Type those keywords in or something and make that article pop up. It's insane. Trust me, it's insane. Well, other than that, boys and girls, that's all the time we have for today. What a crazy video. It's very weird how much Jonathan Oddi was accurate. He had a lot of gobbledygook ramblings talking about Obama being bin Laden or something with a fake beard. He had a lot of crazy stuff to say, but a lot of stuff he did say ended up coming true. It turns out, yes, Diddy does hire male sex workers to have sex with Cassie while he watches. Yes, that was true. That's been corroborated multiple times at this point. At least 2, 3, maybe more sex workers are going to come out. Just by the way, you know, we're in June. This case is supposed to at least last until July, right? This is like the first week of June I'm recording this in. So yeah, I mean, we have a whole other month of more revelations, more witnesses, more people coming forth. And I wish Jonathan Oddi would be one of those people, but because Jonathan Oddi is in jail currently because of that shooting, they say there's a high likelihood he probably won't be a witness because they think that the jury will be influenced with that knowledge to just automatically kind of push him off and not really, you know, listen to what he has to say. I would love to hear it though, because, you know, again, if you listen to Jonathan Oddi, he is cool, calm, collected, you know, in the tapes of what he had to say. He said crazy stuff. He even kind of predicted the assassination attempt. Like, I think that's insane that he said all of this. So personally, he's a guy that I would like to hear more from. You know, I kind of got this thing that I say, you know, I hear some of these people say stuff and, you know, some of these people are like, yeah, you know, that person's crazy. And my whole thing is like, yeah, if you went through the things that they went to, you'd probably be a little crazy too, would you not? I mean, think about it. If you were having sex with Cassie while Diddy is like 3 feet away from you watching, while according to Jonathan Oddi, on the phone with the Illuminati. You know what I mean? Like, bro, it's crazy. This is the craziest thing. Like, bro, would you not be crazy while Diddy passes you a bottle and then you drink it and you think it's Ciroc and then it's like, no, that ain't Ciroc. That's liquid cocaine. And, you know, you're deep inside of Cassie on liquid cocaine listening to this man talk about satanic rituals and the Illuminati and yeah. All crazy. All just... But again, yeah, that's enough time for today. I don't want to fry your brains anymore. Hope you guys enjoyed everything. If you've stuck around this long, I appreciate you. Please, you know, drop a comment, you know, just anything, you know, just say happy to be alive. Say happy to be normal. Happy I'm not in Hollywood. Because, you know, at this point, boy, I don't want to be a part of that freak show. But other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I love you all. If you've made it this far, thank you for sticking around. And I'll see you in the season finale. Holler.
She could touch the floor with her palms, you know? Flat. Oh!